Hello there. Welcome back. Welcome back to the lunchtime hour with with both
Neil
of
and
us.
Jose. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not even going to
I,
mention the names anymore.
I almost forgot if we had a title for this show, but lunchtime hour, I think is what we went with, right, Neil?
Yeah, lunchtime hour is the one, the money maker.
Holy smokes, is this really true? Hold on, give me 1 second. Oh my god. Sorry, Neil. I
The
was reading
AMD at
comments and
100.
yeah, I'm like, there's no way. I was just looking at it at 114. And then somebody else said AMD at 99. So I'm like, there two people can't be lying to me.
Let's debunk those lies.
Let's debunk those lies.
AMD.
So just want to say welcome to everybody. I just want to shout out to people from my chat that I can see here, Neil, Felix, in it for the long run, Matthew, Rojas, and Canadian, and Wilmer. So just shout out to everybody watching, and hopefully we can get some great questions on maybe SoFi. I know we have Neil here for SoFi, or just semiconductor stocks in general.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. If we did the stream yesterday, we would have been in Deepseek or Deepsheet. But today it's a bit better, right? Nvidia up 6%, TSM up 3%, Marvell up 2%. Still some red here with the Microns, Intels, and the others. But all in all, well, AMD, there is a specific reason why. There's another unknown analyst that suddenly came out and basically admitted that he should have downgraded AMD 10 months ago, but he only does it right now, a week before the earnings report. Yeah, great. But yeah, we have some stuff to discuss, right? We have some stuff to discuss with regards to Deepseek. Both of us already covered, I think, a couple of times since this weekend, but we're here to cover a little bit more and then answer some questions.
Yeah, definitely, Neil. I mean, obviously, I want to say one of the great things that came out though for Deepseek is it came out this week, right, Neil? We have earnings this week, so I'm hoping. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but one thing I'm hoping for this week is analysts ask the right question to either Mark or Microsoft CEO or maybe even Tesla CEO about what's happening here, right? I believe they can probably provide a little bit more insight of what's happening there.
Yeah, for sure. Plus ASML tomorrow before the market opens. Hopefully, they'll provide some color, although I don't know what much more they can say, but that's going to be interesting. And then we've got Intel Thursday after the market closes. That's going to be an interesting one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say, Neil, yesterday we saw a huge decrease, not just on Nvidia, right? You saw a lot of semiconductor stocks, a lot of other companies down. And I want to say the market is probably sometimes, obviously, we saw yesterday, too much overreacting at one point. And like companies like ASML, I don't believe their bullish thesis is if training chips are cheap or not, or if Nvidia benefits. So like that one didn't make sense to me that it dropped almost 6%. TSMC, another one, and these are two stocks that I don't own and usually don't want to own. But they got pretty interesting. TSMC yesterday was down 13%. And while, yes, NVIDIA chips is a nice revenue for them, they're still also heavily dependent in the consumer space. So it's not like the AI story is for every semiconductor stock. So I thought yesterday was pretty interesting that even stocks that just, I want to say, no matter if this Deepseek stuff is true or false, got hit a lot.
Yeah, I mean, even Broadcom and Marvell were down like what 16, 17% or so, which
Yeah.
is quite strange because if it's true, I mean, forget about the cost, right? That six
Mhm.
million dollar figure. Forget about that. I think we can both agree that cost is coming down for these types of models, especially when it comes to inference. So for companies like Marvell and Broadcom to go down that much, that did not make sense to me because if it is true that cost is coming down, you can have specialized chips that, well, all of these big tech companies are planning to order. Wouldn't that make them big winners? That just to me didn't make much sense to see them down 16, 17%.
That's just too much levels of thinking there, Neo. It's just top level thinking here. AI market down, everything down. But yeah, I agree, Neo. If if these things are true, I would expect that maybe it might push for big tech players to continue to even focus more and more on their AI ASIC solutions. So that one was pretty crazy, but I guess the market just sees, hey, look, if we're going to see a decrease in capital expenditure, we're also going to see it heavily in ASIC solutions.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's funny because remember a week ago we were all talking about that $500 billion Stargate project and how that will impact positively all of these companies and blah blah blah. And now just a week later, it's as if that Stargate thing did never exist. All of the spending is gone. All of the investments are gone. Nothing's going to move. Nobody's going to order chips anymore. It's crazy how fast things can change just based on sentiment and, well, some headlines as well, because it's true there are some unknowns, but come on, a week ago we were spending $500 billion and this week we're going to spend zero. What's going on here?
Yeah, agree, Neil. I think that's why the market is going to be very, very watchful of what happens in this week with capital expenditure. I think we're going to go back to Mark and be like, hey, you still spending that 65 billion? And I'm going to say my gut is telling me yes, they're still going to be spending that heavy kind of money.
Of course it makes sense, right? Especially for players like Google and Meta with platforms with huge distributions, with their own data from their platforms. It makes sense. um, So yeah, I mean, the cheaper things get, the more people, the more users, the more people will start to build on that, and then it's just scaling loss. More people will join, you build even more, get exposures to more people, it becomes cheaper and just become bigger and bigger and bigger. We've seen that with past technologies as well. It's just it makes sense. And then yeah, when it comes to specific companies, of course, every chip stock went down. Every chip stock went down on Monday. But in my opinion, it does bode well for companies like AMD with a bigger focus on inference, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's all dependent on the different steps that go through the AI process, right? Now, I mean, obviously, we just talk about training and inference, but I'm not an AI engineer, but I'm pretty sure there's so many steps between them. I wonder what step is really DeepSeek really kind of creating um, the huge innovation in, and how much is it really going to affect, right? Because it's definitely a portion in the training, but is it all of training? Is it a special part in training? What happens to the other parts of training? What happens between the inference and the training portion? So I think right now it's just so much uncertainty, and I definitely want to learn more about it. But
Yeah,
yes,
no,
inferencing chips are definitely ones that can benefit dramatically in this space.
yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Do you think there is a specific reason why we're seeing the likes of Applied Materials, like the equipment makers, Lam Research, and even Micron still down today, while the others here at the top are green?
I think the market is still expecting, hey, look, since you're going to need less AI chips, you're going to need less equipment moving forward. Um, I don't believe that's the case. I think with Micron, you kind of have that industry that you still have that major impact of HBM. And HBM was kind of like the saving grace for Micron. So I think that's the main reason for Micron. And we also knew that Micron and other players like SK Hynix and Samsung were still investing more capex for HBM capacity. So that could be one of the reasons why we're still seeing semiconductor stocks or equipment stocks getting hit, right? Because hey, look, maybe HBM is not as strong as we thought it was going to be due to this decrease in AI chips. Then they're not going to need this huge increase in capital expenditure. But I think I think the semiconductor equipment, like I mentioned, I think we're going to see. This is very value. If you were to ask me what's one segment in the semiconductor space that I believe can produce long-term returns for investor, I think it would be the semiconductor space, equipment space.
Equipment, yeah. No, I agree. And I think it's like the market only wants to look at the negative side of what DeepSeek brings to the table, and not really on the positive side, right? With Micron, yes, it does show that maybe you could have less memory, but then again, if there is an increase of demand, and if you can run those models on device, on your smartphone, on your PC, you're still going to need a significant amount of memory. Might not be as big on one chip as previously thought, but I mean, I wrote this on X. If you have 100 users paying you $10 or 1,000 users paying you $1, that's the same thing. But if you can have 1,000 users pay you $2, it's 2x the revenue. Yes, for the users, it's 80% less of an expense, which I think is what we're going to get with these developments here. Just because there is going to be maybe less need for huge memory like from Micron or SK Hynix does not mean that you're going to need all in all less memory, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the only thing that I think maybe investors might be questioning with that, Neil, is with HBM, that was kind of like a moat. Then, if you're going to put on local device products, this is most likely going to be either DDR5 or maybe even DDR4. DDR4 is very, very competitive in the Chinese space. And DDR5, while they do kind of have a moat and less of a legacy product, there's that risk of now the competition moat has kind of decreased a little bit, as it might have been a lot harder for the Chinese players to enter the HBM space, but how hard is it for them to enter into the DDR5 space, right? So I think, but again, then it's like, is the market growing so fast that it doesn't matter if there's that competition? So I think it just definitely opens up questions here for Micron.
Yeah, no, I agree. Plus, I mean, there's also going to need to be a need for more storage.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that. And then I still think, because now we're talking about some specialized models, some smaller models, but there's still going to be a need for those huge clusters, data centers, those top of the top chips for the huge models, the GPT-5, the Llama 4, the Grok 3, 4, whatever. Because I do think like DeepSeek, because DeepSeek probably did use the help of GPT to build whatever they've built there. So I think that's the same thing that's going to happen in the future. Just those huge models will be used to train smaller ones. But for the huge models to work, you will still need the best of the best chips, memory, and all of that.
Yeah, so Neil, I think we should get some questions in here. I like this one. I want to hear your thoughts. This one came in from Emma, Neil. Why Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon didn't plunge more yesterday? I mean, this just shows that their capex are not justified. Do you want to jump in first, Neil, or you want me to just share my overall thoughts while maybe you think of something?
No, I mean, for Meta, it's quite clear. I mean, the same happened with Apple yesterday. Apple was also green. For Meta, it's quite clear. This means that the return on investment could be much bigger, because there is going to be less of a need, so to speak, for them to keep on investing that much. Plus, this also shows the power of an open source model like Llama. So I think that's why we've seen Meta and other software players being up when everything else is down. With Microsoft and Amazon, that Microsoft, I was surprised, to be honest, because of OpenAI's exposure, obviously. So I don't know about that. And Amazon, well, it's Amazon. Why would it be red?
Yeah, to me, I think the overall market, right, in theory, and I see something that Matt just announced. I'll share that in a bit, Matt. So thanks for. Let me just not ruin my train of thought here. I think with these big providers, the easy thing is they could easily just turn off the capex expense, right? So it's not like they're not guaranteed, they're not legally blind. Maybe they might have some contracts with Nvidia, but at the end of the day, they are not completely legally blind to continue to invest capex. So it's going to they can shut it off. The great thing is all these players also can kind of use their GPUs that they bought for other solutions. And at the end of the day, if AI just gets cheaper, like you mentioned, you're going to have more use cases. So you probably still need that computational power. So it's a less of a risky situation for them, especially in my opinion for Meta, as they use a lot of their AI for just recommender systems through their whole platform, right? So it's not like they were just purely buying for AI. They were already buying for their own use cases. So I think Meta was one of the least worried about. Maybe Apple, because Apple really didn't spend any money, right? So Apple investors right now are probably excited, saying, "Hey, look, we told you," but it's still too early to tell. Now, Neil, before I jump into another one, I do have this one I liked from Matthew. He says, "Where do I have it?" Matthew, I think I just got breaking news that Deepseek admits to illegally using NVIDIA's H100. I saw this tweet earlier, about like 10, 15 minutes ago, Matthew. It seemed like someone was asking Deepseek, hey, are you trained on H100s? And the answer was yes. I don't know if a model would ever really know what things is trained on it's more on data. And I think this could be it could be hallucination where it has data that, hey, look, most AI models are trained on H100s and most models are trained on Nvidia chips. So it can kind of hallucinate and give you that answer that yes, it's doing it. But I don't know if I would say it's I think it's more of a hallucination. My gut is telling me it's more of a hallucination based on data of other AI models, and it's just saying that that's the truth. But I think if you pressure it more, it's going to be like, sorry, I actually don't know what I was trained on.
Yeah, because I asked it the same question, and it's basically the answer you just gave. I don't think it knows.
But that doesn't mean that it wasn't, right? That's another thing.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not destroying that fact, right? I think
Yeah.
there is discussion that
No, there is clear indication that they have H100s.
Yeah, so there are talks about that, definitely.
I think I also saw, maybe you've seen that screenshot as well, where it said that it is using AMD MI300X for inference.
Yeah, but I think that's just everybody. I think I was reading it, and it seems like the market thinks like, hey, look, they're only using AMD's MI300. But just like when any of these models come out, right? All these GPU players, not just Nvidia, not just them, but all the other kind of AI accelerator companies like Rock and Cerebras, they start to work so they can kind of get those inferencing in those types of models as well. So I don't think it's necessarily a big move for AMD. When any new model comes out, they usually already provide some form of port for inferencing via AMD solutions.
Yeah, I mean they did jump on that Deepseek hype, right? With their press release, like just like that, like, oh, we're glad to announce the integration and all of that. So they definitely know how to play the game.
The marketing game, yeah, they for sure. Any other questions you see here, Neil?
Just questions about AMD. Is it a buy? Is it a dud? Is it a buy or not? Things like that.
I mean, and also remember, I think we've talked about it in the past. The AI market is not just the hardware space, right? It's
Hmm.
a whole full stack system. So, I mean, I don't I think just this just brings more questions for the AI space, but it's not. And I think that's what the market yesterday was all about. They didn't want to ask questions. They didn't want to wait for the questions because maybe they're worried about what the real answer is going to be. I don't think we have a definite answer what this is really going to move into the upcoming quarters or in the AI innovation. The only thing is the way I see it, Neo, is all these big tech players were using a lot of AI compute for things like large language models and LLMs. But is LLMs the endpoint for AI? I don't think it is, right, Neil? So now all these big tech players have something else to they have now, if the efficiencies in LLMs are true based on what DeepSeek provided, and I'm pretty sure all the AI engineers at Meta and all these other players are going to read their papers and try to find out something from there and optimize their own models. Now they're going to have more compute power to work on some other things, right? So it's as long as AI innovation doesn't halt, then I think we're good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we can all, I mean, we've come to that conclusion for a while ago that LLMs will become a commodity. So it's what you build on top of all of that that will be important. And like you said, they can use all of that. That's the thing. It's like everybody, first we went from, oh, 0 to 1, everything is AI, everything is AI. And now it's like, oh, LLMs was everything in AI, and so now everything is dead in AI, which doesn't make any sense because there's still a whole ecosystem to build on top of all of that, multiple layers of applications, solutions, um, which which again shows how the market can be overreacting sometimes just based on some news.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Greg, I think mentioned it. All of these Seek's improvements can scale. You can throw more compute and make even more better models. So not bad for Nvidia. Entire news cycle mostly missing this point, right? So this is. I mean, you talked about it, Neo. I think Microsoft CEO mentioned it with I forget the paradox name, Jevons paradox.
Hmm.
I forget the paradox, but it's just now you're going to see more use cases as well. I mean, Neil, Meta Platforms has so many AI solutions that they do not give to their consumers just because they didn't have the computational power or they didn't have it just wasn't maybe viable for them in a cost way. So they just open source all these solutions. They have like this 3D thing, this video thing, and the list goes on and on. Protein thing, right? For protein chemical stuff. So now that cost is becoming different, now maybe they can start to introduce that to their consumer users, continuing to increase or scale up the compute needs.
Yeah, I have here a DeepSeek will probably break in a few days, just like Timu products.
Yeah, and
uh,
Matthew here, energy, cooling, chips, software, rack, CPU, cables, it's all the things, right? It's everything when it comes to the AI space. And this is why yesterday I was again, it was so weird that so many companies were hurt. I'm not saying it's bad for NVIDIA, but I would still believe data center infrastructure is still going to be built out. So in this wild scenario that NVIDIA drops, I think you still have the bullish case for data center infrastructure.
yeah, and I mean, it's true that for some, I mean, if you can spend less and reach about the same results, then why not? Right? Why not do it? So I can understand why some players, when it comes to infrastructure and energy players and all of that, did get hit also quite a lot because essentially, if it proves out to be true that you can create great models and all of that by spending much less, then there might not be the need to build out a $500 billion, I don't know, complex infrastructure, you name it.
Yeah, definitely, Neil. Let's see. Any questions here that you want to cover, Neil?
Trying to see here something.
Let's see. Thursdays. I think Thursday's just going to be a big day for the AI market, right? Because Wednesday after hours we have all those huge earnings. So with all those huge earnings, I think we're going to get a lot of answers about the AI space.
Yeah, plus, I mean, it's not company specific, but you have, I think, the
Mhm.
FOMC meeting as well.
Oh, definitely. One thing I normally don't watch and probably won't.
Yeah,
So I'll get your thoughts on that when it happens.
I think the market will tell us how it feels,
Mhm.
if it's up or down. Yeah, this is definitely true. If you build it, they will come. I think we've seen that in the past, and I think it stays true today.
Yeah. Quick question here from Jay. Can you discuss why people think NVIDIA GPUs are not optimal for inference? We see that Chamath says his architecture, it's the architecture. People think AMD is better than NVIDIA. Can you discuss NVIDIA's ability to inference? I mean, I don't believe it's that they're not optimal. NVIDIA is their biggest market. They say about 40% of their GPUs are already being used just for inference solutions. I think people are more worried that there was a premium price on NVIDIA GPUs because they were so strong on NVIDIA. So on a top level approach, I'm not saying this is true, but just more how the market is seeing on a top level approach, people are saying, hey, look, maybe NVIDIA's not, we don't need edge training as hard as we do, which I don't believe that's the case. If we just need inferencing, maybe it's okay for us to go with some of the other players like AMD. But NVIDIA's software stack is going to be very important for inference. Inference is a lot harder than it sounds, right? It's not as easy. You need all that software stack, you need the huge system build out. So even if inference is just the market, I think Jensen would just tell, hey, look, guys, on the training team for AI chips, how about we focus more on designing not just the software, but the hardware to be more competitive now in inference, and then we won't really have competition in the space.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to pricing, right? Total cost of ownership, um, which of course we know that Nvidia is quite expensive all in all, and with inferencing, well, the cost comes down quite rapidly. So we'll see how that evolves. But I mean, to say that Nvidia is not going to be a big player in inferencing is, I think, not serious thinking from
The
Shamat.
only now I do have a wild thought, Neil. Um, what if DeepSeek is just kind of it gave all these open source solutions and it's telling us that the way it did something was through this method? And what if it's just focusing all these AI engineers to look at that method, but it was all a lie, so they can continue to innovate? It's like a fake end race where they're just forcing engineers to look at the wrong direction while they actually end up going the right direction.
I wouldn't be surprised, but it's I don't know, the fact that they went open source is interesting, right? Because you can basically look at all of it. Of course, we can't look at the all the training that happened beforehand, but open source is not something I was expecting to come out of China.
I agree, Neil. That's something I get. I'm asking why wouldn't they just want to keep this as a closed source, but still be able to showcase that, hey, look, we're actually doing better than open AI. Um, I, I I just don't see it. I don't understand why. There has to be a why, right?
There has to be a why, and it's either because they wanted exposure from, well, around the globe, because if it was closed, I don't think it would have been uh, so well covered. So yeah, it's it's interesting. It's interesting to go open source.
Question here: is there something that worries you before tomorrow's meeting earnings as an Nvidia shareholder? Neil, I don't think you're a shareholder, right? But I would definitely want to hear your thoughts. What would you think if you were an Nvidia shareholder? What would you be worried about before going to earnings tomorrow?
To be honest, not much. Not much, because we've been hearing Jensen talk for weeks and months. We've been hearing the others talk as well, and I just don't see how things will change just because of DeepSeek right now. I just don't see how all of these big tech players are just calling up Jensen and say, "Oh, actually, you know what? We were not going to order billions of dollars worth of GPUs." I just don't see it happening, and people forget that Nvidia has its hands in multiple things around the globe: automotive, robotics, and all of that. These things will exist, Deepseek or not. Nvidia is a big player in those industries as well. So yeah, not that worried. Let's be honest. I'll be maybe more worried for other players that aren't as strong as Nvidia. But yeah, tomorrow I'm more focused on Tesla and Elon during the earnings call.
Yeah, you know what, Neil? I don't think big tech would say that they're going to be reducing capex. Obviously, if I'm an Nvidia shareholder, that would probably be my biggest worried. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think, at least for now, it's too early for Microsoft and all these players to say they're going to reduce their capex. If that was the case, I think that would be a very, very scary scenario. What I think is possible, Neil, is someone asking about capex and the response being more of like, yeah, we're still going to be spending, but we are looking at these changes and we'll make changes accordingly, and kind of just leave it as an open-ended answer. And because you leave it as an open-ended answer, the market and everybody's going to interpret it their own way. And I think that interpretation can create a lot of volatility for Nvidia stock. So it's also always important to kind of think about in the short. As a long-term investor, you could care less, but if you're worried about stock price, I think any miswording of management or any open-ended answers left unanswered can create volatility in the stocks. And I think in the short term, that would be my biggest worry.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that. But yeah, I don't know. We had TSMC, right, a couple of weeks ago. They are increasing their capex by a significant amount. There is probably a reason for that. So yeah, I wouldn't be worried. I wouldn't be worried that much.
Yeah, and TSMC happened a week ago. That's like 10 years in the stock market, stock price
A week ago, yeah.
mentality.
Yeah, it does seem like way more than that. There is this question. I would use LLM far more often if they could respond with audio or better yet, video. How long will it be before there are audio generated LLMs or better yet, video? So audio ones exist, right? You can talk to OpenAI, ChatGPT, and Gemini. Video is video is probably avatars, right? Something that NVIDIA touches, um, which is also, I mean, that's going to be an interesting thing.
Yeah, definitely, Neil. I mean, I know OpenAI has their voice mode. I don't know if you have it in that part of the world, Neil, because I know you mentioned you only
Yeah,
get
no, this we have. This we have.
you have voice mode. So I think if compute stuff does go lower, then you just start seeing this, right? You're going to see that compute being used in other aspects. You're going to see it maybe used more in audio and more in video. So again, if large language models was the end game, then this is the scary part. If it's not, I really wouldn't be too worried.
Yeah. Plus, it's also good news for players like Meta and all of that want to create hardware for AR, VR. Um, would make those devices way more powerful as well.
Let's see. I have this one from Football Hype, Neo. Do you think AMD stock can recover to 140 after this upcoming earnings? I don't think anything in earnings, in my opinion, Neo, can really give this. I mean, anything can happen with stock price and movements, right? But to me, I don't think there's anything revolutionary that AMD can say this quarter that would really drive stock prices, especially, Neil, since we heard from other big players like SK Hynix and Micron, who are in the memory space for the consumer market, saying that the PC refresh cycle is taking longer than expected. Maybe the only thing is they can probably hype up more sales on the MI300 if this inference thing is true, right? If they can definitely be a big player, that could be maybe one of the catalysts if they discuss that. If maybe, hey, look, in the last 2 weeks after this Deepseek announcement, we actually saw a huge influx of orders of the MI300 and MI325. I think that would be the only way we can see a huge price action on AMD after earnings, which is like, when is that, Neil? Next week?
Yeah, the fourth, which is Tuesday after hours.
Nice. Maybe we
Yeah,
can do a stream.
yeah, for sure. yeah, I think anything positive on AI revenue, and if they see some accelerated orders and all of that, will be received very, very positively for AMD. And then, yeah, since the stock has been pushed down so much, I can see a double-digit move.
Definitely, Neil. So here we got Greg. Greg just posted a question. I've actually seen this stock a lot in today's show. Neil, VRT went down from 150 to 103. Buying opportunity right now. So VRT is one of those infrastructure plays in data centers. Um, like I mentioned, I believe even if this is bad news for Nvidia, again quotations here, if it's bad news for Nvidia, I still think we're still going to see an influx of data centers being built out. So companies like Vertiv can definitely benefit. The only other thing I would say is some of these stocks like Vertiv, though, Neil, they did kind of get a huge price reaction after you kind of saw like that Stargate program. So now the question is it more a pullback because they were a little bit overvalued after certain excitement of announcement from the Stargate and all that? And that's the question to ask now. It's like, this valuation makes sense now. There's definitely that growth opportunity, and obviously a 30% drop is creating a better risk to reward ratio. But for me, with VRT and more the infrastructures, these are companies that take time to mature because it's you don't build data centers overnight, right? It takes time to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, people should remember that this one is already up, well, was up triple digits year on year before the recent drop. So it wasn't the cheapest name out there anymore.
And now that I think about it, one of the things that could actually also help out for Vertiv is we're seeing like less regulations being happening in the building process of data centers, so that can actually maybe speed up their growth acceleration a little bit faster. So that again, I want to share both thoughts. Maybe valuations might be a bearish take to look at. A bullish thought is a lot of AI data centers, in my opinion, are still going to be built out, and now with less infrastructure regulations, you might even see their growth accelerate faster than expected.
Yeah, agree. I think we're going to see a lot of movement in the next, I would say, even 12 months. There was a new Jensen interview that dropped on Cleo Abrams' channel on YouTube. I didn't start it yet, but it's a very, very good channel tech-wise. I suggest people to go watch that.
Yeah, I think I saw kind of the preview. It seems like it was more discussion of robotics, which is obviously a future of AI. I'm definitely going to take a closer look after maybe we have a slowdown of all these earnings this week.
Mm-hmm. We have here Jay saying that Nvidia warns that the RTX 5090 and 5080 might quickly run out of stock. Okay. Expensive consumer products that always run out of stock because scalpers buy them and then sell them for a higher price.
Yeah, and normally for those, I mean, the 5090 and the 5080 always, or the 90 and 80 versions always tend to be lower volume. So they tend to not have, they tend to always sell out even with the crazy prices. At the end of the day, Jay, right now we really don't care much about the consumer space for Nvidia. It's really all about the data center market, right? The consumer is still, it's probably now low single digits of total revenue, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Yeah, what is a bigger deal was this, right? That Trump said that he would put tariffs on chips that are made outside of the United States, which in turn should be pretty bullish for Micron, since Micron is building in the United States, for Intel building in the United States. Of course, TSMC foundry in the United States as well. But yeah, that's going to be interesting for some companies, especially my good friend Intel.
And remember, it also, I think many people are worried that because you kind of get 100% price increase in these tariffs, it means that chips are going to become more and more expensive. Remember, the cost of these chips is all these companies have high gross margins, right? And high margins, even for the consumer market. So it doesn't translate that it's going to be 100% increase in Nvidia GPUs or stuff like that, right? Or even CPUs in general. It could definitely impact the consumer space, but it's not going to be like 100% increase. It might be like a few extra dollars here and there. So I don't think. eh, I think this is just a push for maybe Taiwan to accelerate maybe their manufacturing here in the United States. Right? What's it called? The art of the deal.
Yeah, 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 for sure. It's all about the deals. It's all about the deals.
So
Um,
Matthew mentions he loves VRT here. I definitely see a lot of bullish cases for VRT, especially after that price drop. Just curious if there's any other VRT shareholders on chat, or if anybody's planning on buying VRT right now.
There's Joey here asking about Micron. I think he missed the start, but that's
Mhm.
fine. Got into Micron same time as you, and you guys touched on it. But how are you feeling about the company now? And are you reconsidering your position? Well, feeling quite good. I just I can get more shares at a lower price, and yet in my eyes the company did not get destroyed, or still in my eyes not much has changed.
Yeah, I think for Micron, there's still plenty of growth opportunities here for Micron. I think the market is overreacting to the demand of AI chips. I think we're going to see AI compute still continue to grow. So I think for Micron, it's just more uncertainties, but I'm still very much bullish on the stock.
Yeah, that's the thing. People need to understand that just because Deepseek came out with something this weekend does not remove or delete everything that has happened beforehand or everything that's planned to happen in 2025, right? All the orders, Blackwell, MI 350, MI 400, etc., etc. These things will still happen. Um, and guess what? In all of those products, you will need a memory from Micron or SK Hynix.
Definitely. I have this pretty cool question here, Neil from CR. Do you see a potential slower return with Nvidia compared to AMD these next few years? AMD just seems too cheap to not start a position. I obviously I wish I knew the answer, Neil, but I think both have optionality. In my opinion, Nvidia's optionality is the continued growth of the AI market. And if that expands at dramatic levels, Nvidia can definitely continue to benefit. I think for AMD, it's what I would consider maybe a more balanced approach where they just need to sell more consumer products and they would still do really good in stock price performance. Where if Nvidia sells more consumer goods, it doesn't really impact the stock too much as it's such a small portion of Nvidia's revenue. So I think both can do well. And it's all just dependent on where your bullish thesis lies. If your bullish thesis lies that, hey, look, AI is going to be something crazy, I think Nvidia is the one to go. If you think AMD is going to sell more consumer chips, if their embedded market is picking back up, if they can maybe make some sales in the AI space, then AMD definitely could be one that can have some better returns.
I agree. Actually, today, before we answer this one, today I have like 3, 4 messages from people saying, "Oh, I bought AMD today," like random messages from friends that was like, all of them today decide that today might be the bottom for AMD. Little do they know that AMD stands for Advanced Money Destroyer.
Oh, poor man. Neil, you have do you have a choice between these?
I think we did say what we're going to with, right? I think a week or so ago, we said Lamb Research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
And I
definitely.
still stick with that decision. I think it's Lamb for me, then ASML, then Applied Materials.
Yeah, I agree, Neil. I think Lamb Research is my favorite out of the three. Obviously, ASML has the monopoly, so that would be number two. I don't know why Applied Material always rubs me the wrong way. I just there's something about it that does. So not one that, but I think, like we mentioned, I think the semiconductor equipment space is going to be a nice bullish trend. Looking at it in a multi-year landscape.
Indeed. Thank you, CR. Really appreciate that.
Let's see what else do we have. Any other questions any viewers might have? I know we have a lot more up top, but if you would all be so kind, and if we missed a question, to just put it back in the bottom so I don't have to
Yeah.
scroll.
Well,
And again, thank you.
this,
Thanks everybody for the support. It's pretty exciting to be able to do this. Right, Neil?
yeah, now we decided finally to start streaming these things. Slowly but surely, I think we can ramp this up. And now with earnings season, got some drama already right now, so I think these streams are going to be extremely helpful. Plus, we can connect with the viewers and subscribers more. So I think it's a win-win-win.
Win. Yeah, definitely, Neil. Um, let's see your takes on AMD being on hold by Melius Research. Is this the one I saw
Yeah,
someone do
yeah,
today
yeah. It's
where
this
you
the
talked
one
about it
we.
earlier, right?
Yeah, exactly. So quick summary, a quick recap. Basically, went from $160 buy rating to now $129 with a hold. He said should have done it 10 months ago, doing it right now. Also, the reason is like on the fears that Nvidia will come out with the CPU consumer products and destroy x86, which will put more pressure on AMD and Intel. But I don't know, from what I've seen, it doesn't, it disregards all the rest. Like disregards the fact that x86 is still a thing, still performing quite well. AMD chips are still quite good. The data center side of things didn't really talk about that either. I mean, the fact that you start your commentary with I should have done this 10 months ago, but I'm doing this right now because the stock kept on going down, to me just doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I think we should put a calendar on for 10 months from now, an alert, and see if they go 10 months. We should have put it a buy 10 months ago, but no, I mean, just like I am bullish in AMD, right? But it's not the AI space. Um, I think AMD can benefit from a lot of things, and just the overall market is just expecting the AI revolution. But there's more to AMD, and very much I kind of talked about it in my channel, Neil. But Greg breaks it down perfectly. When will AMD, which is a BC great child, surprise its parents with earnings beats or kind of like a A+ report? I don't think it's going to be this upcoming earnings. I think we're going to get maybe a better when we start to see more reports that the consumer market is picking up. I'm going to guess it's going to be next earnings based on guidance of next earnings, not this one coming up with the 4 months from now when they give us guidance that PC refresh cycle is actually picking back up.
And plus, I mean, we're going to probably know from Intel's report and guidance how things could be looking for with AMD, especially from the consumer side of things. Um, which I mean, if you're an AMD shareholder, you should root for Intel to report some good numbers and not bad ones, of course. So yeah, but Intel is Thursday night and then AMD Tuesday next week.
We actually have a question here from Kern. Neil, any thoughts on Intel earnings? What are you looking for from management Thursday, Neil?
Yeah, that's exactly the one I was looking for. What am I looking for? I mean, I'm fully expecting them to beat their own guidance. I think that's should be the easy part. Then, of course, good commentary on guidance for 2025. Hopefully, they'll give it because there is a small percent chance that they'll just say we're giving you guidance for next quarter since there's still no CO right now and all of that restructurings. Maybe we're not giving you full year guidance, which, to be honest, will not be that great to hear. But um, so that there is that. Maybe some comments on the search for the CO, but I don't think we're going to hear much about that. I do want to hear more about 18A, the developments there. If there are maybe new clients that have signed a contract, that could be definitely some great news. PC refresh cycle, what do they see? So yeah, the big expectations are definitely 18A, foundry side of things, how much money are they still burning and how much money they think they will burn in the upcoming, let's say, 12 months. So that's that, but I'm fully expecting a beat for the quarter. And then it's up to them to give us some solid guidance. I think the bar is just so low. I just don't know how this can get hit even more. But then again, you never know. And then I put a 3% chance on a paragraph saying we have agreed to sell parts of our business to XYZ company for that price or whatnot. I think there's like a 3% chance of that happening.
Yeah, I agree, Neil. I think this is either going to be a very no answer. Either it's going to go to the way we're either going to get no answers on anything and it's still going to be wait and see, or it's going to be earnings where right when 4 o'clock hits, we're going to get hit with so many different press releases of some changes happening within the stock.
Yeah, no, agreed. Agreed. I do want to touch on because I see a couple of comments on DeepSeek, and I believe people miss I would say misunderstand the DeepSeek thing. The app, yeah, I do hope that there are no loopholes that Apple missed when it got into the App Store. But since it's open source, you can just run it locally if you want, right? So it's not like the data goes to the CCP, unless, of course, they found a way to do that. But I think that could be seen in the code. So yeah, there is that. If you go on their website, again, information is the questions that you ask them. So yeah, don't put even ChatGPT, just don't put your social security numbers or stuff like that.
Definitely, Neil. Question here from Felix: is Micron dependent on Nvidia? I would say at the moment the HBM market is dependent on Nvidia, as right HBM goes in AI accelerators, and we know who owns the biggest market share in AI accelerator is Nvidia. So it is dependent on that segment. Now, I think Micron in their most not Micron, I don't think Micron, it was SK Hynix in their most recent earnings mentioned that ASIC players are now becoming more of an important player in HBM as well, to kind of create some diversification. I'm gonna guess the same is gonna be for Micron, but I want to say if you're worried about the HBM space, it is definitely dependent on Nvidia at the moment.
Agreed. Agreed. What did you make of the? I don't know if it's verified or not, but the fact that they're going to accelerate the product. What's the name after Blackwell? It's Ruben.
Yeah, I don't think there's any truth to that. I I think some people. Hmm, I just don't think there's any truth to that. Maybe we might see it by like a month or something earlier, but I don't think it's gonna be
6 months.
the 6 month that we heard. There's still so many process in between. Obviously, I'm pretty excited about GTC. I think maybe that's gonna be the biggest place where we get any form of AI news is gonna be GTC or earnings late February, I think.
Ooh, GTC late February. That's still earnings season. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, I meant earnings, which are in late February, and
Okay.
then GTC, which are in March. So I think those are
Okay.
when we're
Okay.
gonna get the biggest AI news.
Yeah, for sure. There are some questions about SMCI, of course. Cannot ignore SMCI back under $30. Still waiting for them to file. So nothing more to report until they report.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? Neil, this is going to be a nothing reporter until they report something. I don't think I could have said it any other way. Um, so Neil, again, I mean, we talked about it. Any Trump's announced tariffs between 25 to 100%. Any thoughts on this on TSMC? Um, Again, I mean, if this does happen, I think TSMC definitely has pricing power, and it's not just going to be. It's not like the only player that would be able to lose out on this is going to be, let's just say these tariffs increases, prices go to to the customer, right? So they go to AMD, to Nvidia. They're not going to be able to really fight TSMC about it, because what they're going to do, they're going to go to Samsung. Samsung's also international, so they're probably going to get hit with those same tariffs as well. And
So
who can they go after? Intel, but Intel doesn't have the production capabilities at the moment, in my opinion, to meet the demand that TSMC is meeting. So there, it could definitely be a nice bullish case for Intel. But at the end of the day, I think the volume needed is still going to be really dependent on TSMC. So I don't think it's anything to worry about for TSMC investors.
Yeah, and like we said, it's just going to push them to accelerate the expansion in the United States. We have this question from Dan with regards to ARM. What do you think of ARM's prospects in the context of Stargate, which supposedly will have its chip designs, and in the other long-standing connection with Apple? So we did touch on Stargate last week. Since then, I believe we've gotten more information from podcasters and stuff like that with regards to that huge $500 billion project, right?
Mm-hmm. I haven't really seen much about it, Neo. Anything new about ARM in Stargate? I know we talked about it, and I personally believe SoftBank was just maybe trying to pump ARM stock up a little bit in one way or another. The only way ARM is integrated, from what I know, is via Nvidia CPUs that are going to be used in kind of these AI chips for Stargate. But is there another way that we've heard about ARM into the Stargate program, Neo?
I know ARM's CEO went on the Brad Gerstner and Bill Gurley podcast for a couple of minutes and talked a little bit about that. But yeah, he also said he like get exposure through Blackwell and Nvidia. Maybe I missed it, but I don't think he said anything else other than they're just going to play their part from a design perspective, I guess. But from what I understand is that $100 billion, even the first $100 billion, this thing can still exist with half of that in the next 2-3 years, even with $50 billion of investment, because Oracle has already been building at that location, apparently. So even with 50 billion, even with 60-70 billion dollars, they can already do a lot. So that overall $500 billion number, I think is like we said last week, I think it's just a number of everything affected by this project and not really SoftBank or OpenAI or whatever investing $500 billion. Plus now with the whole Deepseek thing, that would actually look quite stupid.
So definitely, we got this pretty cool one from Martin here. Martin, it turns around Tuesday for Nvidia. I was just looking at Nvidia stock right now. It's sitting at 100 and almost 120, over 126, up 6% right now. It's crazy, right, Neil? I mean, that's insane. Pretty bullish. I'm happy.
Yeah, no,
but it's just crazy how the market moves. That's what I think is insane. It's just crazy how we can have these types of movements on a company this type of size, right?
I mean, it's still down close to 13% in the last couple of days. But yeah, it's crazy. Yesterday, what they lost close to $600 billion in market cap, which is what, 3 times AMD, even more than 3 times AMD, 6 times Intel, which again is quite crazy. And then today it's up 6.6%.
And Soren here, I think, mentioned something that a lot of people have been discussing about kind of the bullish case of, hey, look, AI has been more efficient, but this just means the better efficiency. The efficiency is just going to drive to more production and more different types of AI spaces.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you have here? Any more questions here from viewers before we jet out? And I'm happy, Neil. We actually started on time. We at 12:30. We're sticking to it. I know our next show is going to be Thursday at 12:30. But if maybe Wednesday, if we see any crazy movements on stock prices, we might do an emergency show or something.
Yeah, if something crashes because of ASML's commentary and report, yeah, maybe we will be there. I think I saw something, but let me scroll back up. There was this. I think we touched on that.
I want to say, I just wanted to post this. It's so funny. This person has the old man yelling at the cloud picture, and then it's saying it's almost like valuations don't make sense.
Who was that? The Grandpa Simpson?
Yeah, Grandpa Simpson. In that episode is a newspaper, and it says old man yelling at cloud, and it's expected to yell like cloud technology, but he's actually yelling at a cloud.
Uh, Simpsons is a good show. What if TSMC buys Intel Foundry? Um, I mean, they'd buy it for the assets, right? They'd buy it for the buildings and the infrastructure.
Yeah, I don't see that happening though. I think United States government it would just push more for a monopoly right into that industry. So I don't
Yeah.
think that would happen for that reason. Um, yeah, and I do have a question I want to cover before we close out. Aaron here, feedback on Clack. I think we've talked about maybe not Clack individual, but I just want to iterate. I'm very bullish in the semiconductor equipment space. I think someone like Clack can definitely benefit.
Yeah. There is this, and I know your answer. Why Avgo not bouncing back? I will just before we answer, I will just show why. It's basically because of this, because it already went up quite significantly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we even talked about it last week. You know, one of the markets that I thought was a little too excited was the ASIC space. I think there's still bullishness for ASIC, like Marvell and Broadcom, but there was a little bit too much excitement after we saw their recent earnings. Um,
Yeah, plus I mean it's still up 67% year on year. So
all right, Neil, I think that's it for me. I don't know. To all the viewers, appreciate it, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to jump into, Neil, before we jet out.
no, I mean we previously a couple of days ago we said we are going to touch on SoFi, but I think we've got enough on our plate with Deepseek and all of the semiconductors. But I can just show what SoFi is doing right now. Let's see. It's down another 1.5% today. It reported earnings yesterday. In short, quarter was good, guidance was lower than expected, EPS was lower than expected because the company is going to invest heavily this year. Plus, their tax rate is going up, which basically cost them 8 to 9 cents, which is basically the difference between guidance much better than what we were expecting. We just didn't take into consideration that the tax rate would be 26%. All in all, I liked it. um, stock overall, I mean it's still up, I think 73% now after a dip year on year. So not the end of the world.
Yes, definitely, Neil. Thank you for that. And yeah, viewers, appreciate the support, and we'll see you again Thursday for sure, right, Neil?
Yeah, Thursday, and maybe who knows, maybe even tomorrow on Wednesday. But Thursday,
Yeah.
Thursday for sure, we'll have a lot to talk about after the Wednesday earnings reports.
All right. Peace
So
out,
see
Neil.
you.
And